Hey, welcome to the CMO Whisper Show. I'm your host, Steve Olensky. Part marketing practitioner, part ad agency veteran, part journalist. I was a writer for Forbes for 10 years. I've had so many insightful conversations over the years with business leaders, to athletes, to celebrities, to, of course, CMOs. The only difference now is instead of sharing those insights through written form, I'm doing it this way. My guest this week is Jennifer Renaud, a former CMO, now CEO and board director of Coolhouse Botanics, a dynamic pet wellness brand where she drives corporate and portfolio strategy, operational expansion, and investor alignment. She is known for building enterprise value through growth strategy, brand revitalization, and cross-sector innovation. With a 30-year career spanning enterprise technology, medical devices, building products, and CPG, Jen brings deep experience in reshaping organizations to outperform expectations, especially during moments of complexity, disruption, or scale up. And one last thing, Jen, we go way, way back, as you know, to our days at Oracle, specifically Oracle Marketing Cloud. And I am proud to call her my friend, my mentor, and confidant. And I am so thrilled you're here today. Welcome.
Thank you, Steve. I can't believe I'm finally here. It's taken us a little while.
It has. Well, your demands are too much. You're diva, I'm kidding.
I know.
But I want to make
There's
sure
always something going on. Yeah. Oh. We just had to wait for the right time. This was it.
Exactly. But you are a dear, dear friend. And I love you dearly. And I can't wait for everybody to hear your brilliance. And without that, let's just jump into it. So
let's go.
First thing, CMO role. It's no longer a functional job, right? It's a leadership pipeline. And I love how you put this when we were talking off air. Today, CMOs aren't just campaign builders. They're cross-functional leaders, customer advocates. That's why, and you really believe this, that's why CMO is one of the strongest and most under-recognized pipelines to the CEO seat.
Yes.
So first question, why are CMOs overlooked as CEO successors, and what can be done to change that?
I think there are probably two key points that make the CMO overlooked. Number one, we've done our own selves a disservice for a very long time over focusing on the promotion P of the four Ps and not all four Ps. Whether or not the team reports to us or not, we need to be super influential on that entire mix, and that whether it's your product portfolio, how you price it for value, how you communicate that value, how you make it easy for people to buy. But if you own that customer experience and that customer journey as a CMO, you have to be far more influential in that entire portion of the journey. And you can't be focused and metric only the promotion piece. And if you do, I can tell you, like, if I had $1 for every time somebody said I have this product, will you market it for me? And what they mean to say is, will you promote it for me? And when you haven't been involved in all of that and you don't understand it, and in some cases it's just plain wrong, that just makes you the chief magic officer, not the chief marketing officer. So I think there's a piece on that side that's really important. I think the other thing is everybody thinks marketing people are creatives, and I might be a creative problem solver. I am not a creative in the sense that I create art. I can't draw a picture to save my life. I can't paint anything. But I can create a story. I can use words. I can creatively problem solve. And I think that's where most marketers that are making it to the CMO role are really sit. But the board and the CEO and the peer set still believe that you're a creative person. If I had one more person say to me, here's a story, will you make this PowerPoint pretty? And no, that's not where I add value. That's not the enterprise value I add. Yeah.
No, I can vouch for that, by the way.
I'm not bad. After 10 years of working at Microsoft, I'm kind of good at PowerPoint.
You and I both know our limitations.
Yes, that would be one of mine.
Exactly. So how do you see the modern CMO role preparing marketers to step into that enterprise leadership, including the CEO?
Yeah, well, I think the thing that's really interesting is there are a lot of transferable skills from marketing, from that domain, that prepare you for a CEO role. And whether it's something like the importance of customer insight, which is phenomenally huge. even if you're a board sitting in the room with the management team, if you focus far too much on the financial metrics, you miss the activities that could be taking place that would help you grow the business in a meaningful way, potentially pivot in tough times, and respond to what's happening in the market in different ways. The levers aren't always save more money, which, by the way, is usually cut the marketing budget. Let's just be really clear. I think another really important thing from a marketer perspective that prepares us for a CEO role is decision making. We have to make them all day long with imperfect data. Like, there is no perfect data in the realm of marketing. I mean, everything we have is some level of imperfect. And yet we have courage and conviction to make decisions and make moves that really matter for the entire enterprise and do things to create enterprise value. And when we're focused on what is driving enterprise value and not just, increasing the number of clicks, we get to the kind of decision making that really happens in the C-suite. I think the other thing is we sell ourselves short. I sell myself short all the time on this. I always refer to my ability to do math as marketing math. But the reality is we do have a lot of financial fluency and literacy that goes unnoticed. While we all may not own a P&L, we own a budget that we have to change every single day. I don't think I had a budget that stayed static more than 24 hours. We were having a discussion all the time on whether or not it was we needed to shave a few more dollars out because we wanted to hit an EBITDA or, EPS number and make that contribution to the business, or whether we were spending something, spending dollars on something that we said, this might not be the thing to spend dollars on. So, I think if we can get ourselves, in the financial fluency conversation to kind of shift from marketing metrics to enterprise value, it definitely leaves us kind of in the right place. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that without question, I'm nodding. You can't see me, obviously, in agreement, but it's a good segue into what I wanted to talk about next, about the imperfectness. I just made that word up. Thank you. Don't look it up. It's not a word.
Like it.
Imperfectness. Thank you.
I think it is a word. And I'm going to try it in Scrabble next time.
There you go. Good luck with that. I love this, the way you described it. You said marketing builds the most transferable leadership muscle, which is decision-making in ambiguity. Yeah. That has so many tentacles and things that I want to get into, but I love that you added on saying that skill that leadership muscle becomes more invaluable when you move into the CEO role where the stakes are bigger. Yeah. But the playbook is just as unclear.
Right.
Elaborate.
Yeah. The playbook, I would say it's just as, you're right. It's equally as unclear, meaning you're set with market dynamics that you have to make a decision on. CEOs right now, myself, others are dealing with crazy stuff like what's happening with the tariff situation that changes nearly hourly. What's happening with, general market dynamics. What's happening with the availability of capital? Like, that changes hourly. And then how do you make decisions that are thoughtful and not in a panic, but also timely? The most important thing that you can do is make a decision and move forward with the imperfectness for which it might be, and be comfortable with you might have to change it. And that's just how it goes. But I think being comfortable in that discomfort, that line is probably the most important part of being able to do this job. I think from my marketing time, like 30 years of my career that were all marketing, that was the one thing I had to get most comfortable with. I didn't know all of the data. I didn't have all the answers, and I had to take action, and I had to do it timely so that it wasn't a foregone conclusion. Like, that, I think, is the worst thing that can happen, is you wait to make that decision and the decision gets made for you. That, to me, is the worst case scenario. Yeah, that's terrible, because it's not an optimal choice. It's what's left. For multiple reasons. And think about the effect it has on your team. Yeah. Like, who is this person leading us if they can't even make a decision? Right. And they're paralyzed. Right. They're absolutely paralyzed. And then when you do make a decision, then they've got to spool up and get started. If they're accustomed to participating in it, which I think is really helpful, like, as you're making decisions, you should be soliciting feedback from across the organization in many different ways, and then play through scenarios. I think scenario planning is a lost art or underrated. Like lay out the scenarios of what's possible and then figure out which path you want to follow.
Yeah. And then adjust accordingly. I know that sounds simplistic, but it's really that's the point.
But it is. Yeah, it is that simplistic and yet not done nearly enough.
Correct.
Just isn't. Yeah.
For a multitude of reasons.
Yep.
So the team building. So I'm curious, like, how do you build confidence in your team to make those bold decisions when, it's the imperfectness of the data is incomplete or unclear?
It's honesty and transparency. I think you have to be able to say, how much information do we have? And based on what we have, what decisions could we make? What are alternatives to our choices here? Let people participate. I think that's the most important part, is allowing people to participate. My whole team, I'm a small team. We're less than 10 people, right? We all participate in our big decisions. I want everybody's thoughts, because if we don't solicit, even from, the person who's got the most entry-level job, who's probably just sitting in the data all day long, probably knows more about the predictability of what is going to happen based on the fact that this person just sits in the data all day long. And I want that person sitting in the room when we are having a discussion. I want that person to speak up. Now, a lot of times the entry-level people aren't usually as willing to speak up, so you have to work hard to help them do it or give them a safe space to do it. But when they feel comfortable and confident in it, which is the most important thing you can do in building your culture, then you're going to get to the best result. And when people believe in it, even if they disagreed with it, if they were able to participate in that decision and have transparency in it, they'll get behind it.
Without question. And I can speak from personal experience with Jen. She empowers everybody and wants everybody's opinion. And I think every leader should do the same. Anyway, you said something not long ago about financial fluency and being table stakes for CMOs. And it's absolutely true. But I'd love that you added on to when we're talking about, it's not becoming, you're not looking to become the CFO. No. But it's about connecting the action you're doing to the impact on the enterprise.
Right. Absolutely. I can use a great example at my last company, it was a really great aha moment for both the CFO and me as we were working through growth opportunities. And we started walking through product by product. And we had a set of products that if we could shift the mix from one low-level product to this mid-value product, if you have good, better, best, most people were buying our good, could we shift them to best? If we shifted them to best, what was the impact to the business? What was like millions of dollars to the top line and millions of dollars to the bottom line? It was a big deal. For every 1.1% of mix shift. So we sat for a little while and said, how much do you think we should spend to drive mix shift? Could that happen? Somebody I'll just say in the law of these numbers. Let's say this 1 point of mix shift drew 10 million to the top line and 5 million EBITDA. How much were we willing to spend to get that 5 million of EBITDA? And we sat here for a little while. We said, is it $1 million? $500,000? What do we think it should be? And we came back and we said, we should spend $1 million. Okay. That seems like a great idea because $1 million spent to get 5 EBITDA and 10 at the top line is probably a pretty good value. By the way, that math is not, if anybody starts complaining about what the math looks like, it's all dependent on your profitability and all sorts of other metrics that go into this. But for us, it was going to make a difference. So we go back to the team and say, if we have $1 million, where do we put it? And how do we allocate the dollars so that we could drive that 1 point of mix shift? We did not spend $1 million and we drove that 1 point of mix shift. So then we went back and said, if it was 2, could you get 2 points? Well, we weren't entirely sure that we could drive that much. So we said, let's just spend this much and see what happens. Well, we were going from 1 to 1.5 to 2. This is a huge difference for the business. Think about it this way. If I had driven like 5 points of mix shift, I basically covered the cost of the marketing department. So how do we make the decisions in a thoughtful way? Because what we do, I think, as marketers a lot is kind of like, here's the whole bread basket. This is everything we've got in the market basket. We're just going to run a lot of activities and see what happens. But getting hyper-focused with the CFO around what that needed to be, then we could make the right moves. What created in that financial fluency is shared language that I could have with the CFO around the impact of marketing and his ability to participate in the conversation around what the budget should be. How much should we spend to go get it? Because it's not going to happen by just dreaming it. So what dollars do we spend to go get it? And once you're able to do that, you're now into a financial fluency conversation that looks very different. I think for us, and I missed this for a long time in my career, but now really being able to understand what happens on the top line activity, what's really happening in our cost of goods sold, where we're, on or off on our SG&A, how it drives EBITDA, and what other financial impact we have in a business that kind of leads, to our final step of our income statement. What things do I need to know and how can I influence it? And I think learning that makes a huge difference. And being able to talk that language makes all the difference.
Exactly. Hey, I'm curious, now that you're in the CEO seat, how long have you been in now, the seat, by the way?
11 months today.
Okay. Oh, a year, right?
Yeah.
Does your point of view, do you look at marketing any different?
Oh my gosh. I was hoping you would ask me this question because this is probably one of the funniest experiences of my life. So I'm in week 1 and I'm looking at the marketing and what they're reporting and what the results are. And I said, this is awful. And I canceled everything. I took marketing to 0.
That's a 0 with a Z, by the way, I get.
So I called my former CEO and I was like, hey, I just want to tell you what I did with my first job as CEO, like my first day in CEO. I canceled 100% of the marketing budget, but there was no way to show meaningful enterprise value because the marketing did not align to the growth strategy. It was just a lot of random activities. And when we said, let's cancel the random activities, reset our strategy, decide where we want to focus and put the dollars behind it, then it will make sense. So that's what we did. Now the dollars are behind it. We're spending 40% less than we were and driving top line growth. So when you're thoughtful and aligned to what your strategy is and you're focused on what you need to do, you can have a huge impact. So for me, I still think it's hilarious that my very first action was cut the whole budget, I fired the CMO, I started over. I did, by the way, hire a CMO. I actually hired a chief growth officer because I wanted sales and marketing to be obsessed aligned because in a retail environment, they have to be. You cannot be running this separately. And it's working well.
Okay. If I have to ask this, because you've told this story to me many times, but I think my listeners would love it, especially since you just talked about sales and marketing. I don't know if you know where I'm going, but the now infamous Mark Hurd, God rest his soul, former CEO of Oracle. And you know what story now I'm talking about? So I'll just let you take it from here in terms of the time that Mark Hurd talked to you, famous CEO. If you don't know who he is, look him up, HURD. He's since passed away. But tell the story, please.
I assume you're going to do the story where the sales team and the marketing team, me, got invited into a meeting with Mark Hurd to discuss what was happening with our revenue.
Yep.
That team, yes.
Yep.
And the sales team said, marketing sucks. They absolutely suck. They don't know what they're doing. They couldn't market us out of a bag with flashlight and a map. Like, they just can't do it. They just were really brutal. And Mark said to me, looks at me, he's like, is this true? And I said, well, if perception is reality, then yes. If they think that the problem that they're having is marketing, then yes, it's marketing and we need to do something differently. He says, I think we should just take the budget to 0. And I said, seems like a good idea.
This is Oracle now. This is this is not a startup.
No. And so we did that. And 1 quarter later, we go back and the sales team says marketing did absolutely nothing to help us. For which he said, I remember that we totally cut their budget. I was like, well, we did totally cut the budget. Not that we weren't doing things as a team. You were there. You know, we were working very hard on what our plan was going to be when we were back because we knew we'd be back. And of course we were because it didn't get better. In fact, it got worse. So that led to a fully different conversation with the sales team. You know, how do we actually engage with each other in a meaningful way to drive growth? And it changed everything. It was a huge lesson for me. I think about that one a lot, which is why here, canceling the budget, I sat there for a moment thinking about what the risk was and thought, it can't possibly get any worse than it is right now. So let's check the risk. And revenue fell back a teeny tiny bit, but not a lot. And for the dollars we saved, it was phenomenal. And that's when we said, okay, now we have to rethink what we're doing.
And it also speaks to and validates your decision to have a chief growth officer because you want that sales and alignment across the board.
Yeah. I want him waking up and thinking about it all day long. How do I get these two to work together in the way that they need to work together to drive the result we're looking for? And now he can pull either lever at any time without having to consult anyone but himself, although he does call me. But he can make those decisions, and he's empowered to make those decisions, and there isn't conflict within that. And we don't have time for conflict in it right now. We're too small a team to have conflict. So how do we solve it?
The lean and mean, and you gotta rock and roll.
Yeah.
Risk. So glad you brought this up because it's the next thing I wanted to talk about. And you wrote something to me, and I want to read this verbatim, and I want to break it down because it's just so compelling. You said, risk isn't the enemy, it's the job. Marketing leaders are more comfortable with risk than they get credit for. However, the CEO's role is to frame risk, not avoid it. And the key is knowing when you're mitigating it and when you're consciously accepting it to drive growth. A lot to unpack there. And I want to start with, I love that you say risk isn't the enemy, it's the job. To me, when I read that, I'm like, that's part of the job description.
Yes, it is. It is eyes wide open and understanding the difference between reacting and leading into it. And I think that's really important part of risk. I don't think I appreciated thinking about risk nearly as much as I did until I went into Masonite. And we had a risk leader, enterprise risk manager, who was phenomenal, a woman named Katie Schellebacher. And I learned so much from her about identifying risk and then determining whether or not we should accept it or mitigate it. Should we do something about it, or should we just know that it exists? I spend more time starting with that framework. Is it something I should accept or not? What's the cost of accepting it? What's the cost of mitigating it? Just had one, an issue recently where we had to have that discussion and, walked out of it and said, this is a risk I'm going to accept. It has a time limit to it. And this is when the time will end. And then that risk no longer exists. Mitigating something that has a time limit didn't make any sense. It was going to cost us a lot of money to do something that I said, I think let's roll with this one and accept it. Teaching a team how to talk about risk that way, because everybody thinks they should mitigate 100% of the risk that exists. And you can't operate a business that way. You can't. I mean, you would spend all your time and money trying to solve things you can't solve. Nor should you leave them. You should just, eyes wide open, know that it's there. And you might have to deal with it, but you may never have to deal with it. So how do you think about it that way? I think that is, I learned a lot about it from marketing in general, because we just took risk all the time. It's back to that imperfectness of data. That if you're leading in imperfectness, there's some level of risk of everything that you're doing. And so how do you go do it? There is a positive side of risk. I guess I'm going to look at it this way, that says sometimes you just have to take bold moves. And that's what makes the difference. So I was thinking about a problem the other day, and I'm laying in bed and I'm thinking to myself, this is one of those moments where we might have to make a really bold and radical move. And what does a bold and radical move look like? What would we do that would be bold and radical? And, then go back to the team and I'm like, this is what I'm thinking about in bold and radical. What do you think bold and radical is? And we came back and we made some decisions this week. We're like, that's bold and radical. Let's go do that. Let's go do that. And, when you lay out what's the worst case scenario, well, the worst case scenario is maybe we lose a little bit of revenue. Best case scenario is we grow by another 20%. Well, it seems like we should try this.
Yeah.
So I think being able to think about it in a meaningful way is what really matters. And we do it as CMOs all the time. And yet we don't articulate it. This is where our storytelling on the things that we do really blows.
Yeah, I mean, the wordsmith, thank you, Jennifer Renaud. But I love it. But it goes back to something that I read earlier that you wrote, and it's a perception thing where you said marketing leaders are more comfortable with risk taking than they get credit for. That's interesting to me. That's like, it's a perception thing then, right? Right.
It's a total perception thing. We're more comfortable in it, but we don't articulate it in an enterprise value way. We don't articulate it in a way that our audience can hear it. And it's a total like cobbler's shoe kind of thing. Like most marketers are really good storytellers. And yet when we have to tell our own story, we're not good. We don't tell the story.
But why? Is it as simple as the cobbler's kids?
Probably.
Right?
Probably it is that way. There is a way to tell the story relative to the enterprise value that we have to work on.
Yeah.
And I think as a community, it's something we have to continue to do. If I go to another CMO event in my life where we talk about the promotion side of the business and, the woe is me moment, I will lose my mind. So change the narrative. That's what we do.
I'm going to take it a step further to say, and you're uniquely qualified to speak on this, is marketers will get more comfortable, right, in telling their story when they have the right CEO behind them.
Yes, they will. They will. And when they've, built the right partnerships across the organization.
Correct.
Do you have a good relationship with your CFO? Do you understand how the CFO needs to tell the story to the street? Mm-hmm. I spent 2 years of my career at Masonite really working on how we would articulate the story to the street and how we would get the proof points that we need to prove that our strategy worked. And that meant going back to my team and saying, here's the kinds of proof points that make sense for the street. If we want companies to invest in us, we want investors to invest, we need to give them reasons to believe. Same thing as you would do with your product. It's the exact same thing. So if you're going after your reasons to believe, what does that look like? What do we need to do that? Now, is it entirely activities that marketers need to do? No, you actually have to work across the entire company to make a lot of these proof points happen. So how do you do that so you can actually help your finance team and your investor relations team do their job? They go into these, every quarter needing to tell the story and, not getting the support that they need from the marketer.
Exactly.
I would sit in front of the investor relations team. I would just walk over to their desk and sit and ask questions. What will help you do that? What else could I be doing? Here's the kinds of things we're doing right now. Is this a good proof point for you or not? Yeah. What if it went like this? So that we could go in and they would have really thoughtful and meaningful proof.
Exactly. I knew this was going to happen, by the way. And this being, we're not going to get to everything that I want to talk about because it's you and I, and people don't know, we have very lengthy, long conversations. So there will be a part 2. I promise you that.
All right.
But in the essence of time, I'm going to get to how I end every show, and it's the random 5.
Okay.
And if you've listened, I pull 5 very random questions out of this massive database. And here we go. Number 1, if you weren't doing what you do now, what would your dream job be?
I'd be a captain of a yacht. And I'd be on the TV show Below Deck. I'd be that captain.
So a lot of drama.
I want drama and chaos and just a lot of fun and entertainment. That's it.
I love that. Okay. Number 2, what's the best advice you've ever received, and do you still follow it?
The best advice, I'm going to call it more of a feedback type advice that I've gotten, that I use all the time. I think about this all the time. You have to be a participant in your own rescue.
Elaborate a little bit. Yeah.
So as a manager and a leader, let's say you have an employee who's struggling a little bit. You give advice, but they don't take it at all. I use the words a lot with people. You have to be a participant in your own rescue. If I throw you the life ring, you have to grab it. You can't expect that I'm going to swim it out to you, wrap it around your body, kick your legs for you. None of those things are going to happen. So whether it's me receiving advice, I have to figure out how I give to go do that. You can just say, whether it's the 100% rule or you just say 51%. If somebody's coming to meet me, I better go just a little bit further to meet them. And I think about it all the time. I use it a lot. People know when I start that language because they hear me say it, that they know, when it's coming at this point because I use it.
Yeah.
A lot.
No, it's fantastic analogy. I love that you have to be part of your own rescue. Mm-hmm. It's awesome.
Yep.
Okay. Number 3, early bird or night owl, and how does that show up in your work?
Early bird. I do my best writing in the morning. If you ask me to write after 2 p.m., it's gobbledygook. It just is, it's nonsensical. I can't think, I can't do anything in the afternoon. I am best at that point with interesting telephone calls and But if I can be engaged in a problem-solving activity, I probably do that a little bit better. But if it's my solo work, it's got to happen in the morning, early bird.
Okay.
And night owl, I'm asleep, like asleep.
Okay. Number 4, what's a book, movie, or song that shaped the way you think?
You've got to know what this one is going to be.
I do, but I want everybody to hear it.
When I think a lot about my work as a B2B marketer, the song that I will always sing to everyone is Neil Diamond's I Am, I Said.
Why?
It is the ballad of the lead.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we get a lead, and it's I am, I said to no one there. When you have marketing and sales misalignment, that lead is singing that ballad all day long. And it's because we haven't decided how to disposition, address, deal. That's the plight of it. Somewhere there's video of Adrian Chang and I singing it. It was not good. I mean, Adrian's good. It was me.
Yeah, it's a former
Oracle CMO. Yeah.
I'll have to see if I can dig that up and find it.
Yeah, it's out there. He sends it to me every once in a while. When he listens to this, he'll send it.
Exactly. Last question. Who's someone outside your industry you really admire and why? Outside your industry.
Outside my industry. Wow. I mean, I've been in a lot of different industries, so I think it's
outside
really
of marketing,
fascinating. Yeah. Do you know, it's actually another marketer, one that you and I have talked about, who's now at JCPenney. The way that she can articulate, and I'm like, can't believe I'm totally going to blank her name right now. Marissa
Thalberg, who's been a guest on my show.
Yes, she has been a guest on your show. She has an empathetic strategy of being able to bust into people's psyche like no other and can reinvent brands in phenomenal ways. And I had to ask you the question. I'm like, is she real? Like, is this real? To which I got the answer, yes, it absolutely is. And since I'm going to follow everything she does and says because of that, I wish I knew her. I just mind blown by her ability to do that.
She is pretty special, but so are you.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very sweet.
And we're up against it. Jen, thank you so much. There will be part 2, I promise, because there's some things we didn't get to. I don't want to tease them yet, some topics, but Lord knows you and I always have enough to talk about. So my friend,
we usually do.
My mentor, my confidant, I love you. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you so much. Love you so much. And so glad we could do this.
Well, that wraps up another episode of the CMO Whisperer Show. I hope you shared this episode with your friends. And if you have not already, please subscribe to be kept up to date on all the latest episodes. And if you're so inclined, leave me a review on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you.